live. And, well, we're getting into the, I don't know if you call it Hell Week. We're talking the last week before elections, next Tuesday, August 23rd. If somehow you've missed that, then we're going to remind you about 48,000 more times over the coming week. So, guys, we are sitting here with Fred Zackery, who some of you have probably seen. And if you've been paying attention to any of the city council meetings, I know for sure you've seen Mr. Joseph Cole. And we're going to talk about education. I really don't know where this is going to go. We're going to have fun. It's been a pleasure to get to know especially Fred, and this is the first time I've actually gotten to meet Joe in person. But when you get them going, you learn some things, and it's usually pretty lively. So I'm hoping that this is a fun conversation. If you got any questions, then drop them in there in the comments. But that's where we're going with this. We'll give it just a minute for some folks to jump on. If you can hear me, then please, as always, somebody drop a comment telling me that you can hear us loud and clear, and please hit that like and share button and maybe tag a friend. So while folks are jumping on, I know I saw Mr. Zackery, you were out for the little community celebration that we had at the airport the other night. I thought that we had a couple hundred people show up. I felt like it was a good breather, a good end to kind of all that we've been doing the last 2 years. At least one rendering plant fight. Obviously, we've got a lot more war to fight, but appreciate you coming out, and hope it was a good time.
Well, it was, and I enjoyed being there and seeing all of the citizens, and the Humane Society had pets to adopt and a whole lot of things. Just a multifaceted event, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, something about doing things at an airport with airplanes and sunsets, I just don't feel like you can go wrong. I hate that we didn't have even more of the community, but hey, maybe one of these days, if we can get all this stuff straightened out, we can throw a big air show out there and really show off the airport. So that would be fun. I'm glad you were able to make it over. You're originally going to be stuck over in Atlanta.
That is correct.
But what brought you over to Gadsden today? Are you?
Well, I do have family here, so I had to come and help my brother and family with some matters. So since I was here and I have been contacted, I said, well, since I am here, let me make the tour to Advance Etowah. I've seen you quite a few times, and so I'm honored and thankful that you have me on your program today.
Well, I appreciate you coming in, and I've not been bashful. You two gentlemen have been fighting the fight that a lot of us have been newcomers in the last 2 years too. Y'all been doing it. Well, I don't want to make y'all sound old because you're not, but you've been doing it. You've been doing it a long time.
That's true.
And a lot of different aspects, and I appreciate. I appreciate the way that y'all fight, the insights that you have. I genuinely I've learned a good bit listening, even to you over in front of the city council, and certainly sitting in some meetings where Fred has shared some insightful opinions. So, but it was funny. I've been thinking. A lot of people that have obviously been accusing us of getting all meddled and involved in politics, and I think back to when we had a meeting months and months and months ago, sitting in there, and we were all we just don't want to be involved in politics, and I believe it was you that kind of chimed in and said, you're already there, you're already involved in politics.
That meeting, yes, I remember that.
And that was like, well, you're dead on right. So here we are keeping the fight, but 1 week away from potentially some very, very big changes for our community. That's so, All right, Danny Starnes, very thankful for Mr. Cole making the trip over and the fight for fighting this administration. Um, all right. First thing I want to kind of throw out there before we really kind of roll in, because Fred is running for the school board, the Gadsden City School Board. So education, I know, which I mean, for both of y'all, education has been, it's near and dear and a very fundamental piece of everything you think about. So the Clean Water Act thing, which is also something that I know you're personally involved in with Fred.
I am a plaintiff.
This rhetoric of the clean water is somehow going after the Gadsden City School money. What's your understanding of that actual relationship there? Because certainly anyone accusing anyone of trying to take money from the children by this lawsuit, well, you're involved in it just like I am. So what's your understanding of the realities of this?
Well, what's real is real, and what's a lie is a lie. Doesn't matter who tells it. The money that comes from the water board is about $35,000 annually, but does not go into the general fund of the school district. It goes into a special fund, which is using technology to do reimbursements. It's about $35,000 annually, so that does not make a bulk of the school board. It's just kind of sad when you have to make up things to accommodate your unwillingness to discuss the issues practically, and that's what's happening with that. Throw it out and hope that you can prey upon the lack of knowledge and promote your ignorance and try to score some points. It has nothing. It's not taking a dime from the school district,
right?
Like the council did. The council actually defunded the school district. So this has nothing to do with taking away money from the school district. It has to do with making sure that the water supply to Gadsden and other places where we sell the water, we're drinking and bathing in clean water. Right now is not.
And I know there's also the sewage overflow, which a lot of folks at the rendering plant, I never thought I'd talk so much about poop. But thankfully Coosa Riverkeeper's done a really good job of I think educating a lot of folks and being a source. The sewage overflows, so that's it's a violation of the Clean Water Act, and it's odd too, because a lot of the major problems when you talk about sewage overflows and flooding and lack of runoff, that's all part of the violations of the Clean Water Act. It's very much an East Gadsden problem. A lot of the minority community is very affected by it. And it's, I don't know, it seems like an odd thing to see, but just want to make sure that we get the realities, the facts, and as I understand from talking with Christy, just as the attorney for, obviously both involved with this, but for the school board aspect, there's really no way that this case would ever affect that pot of money.
It doesn't,
and even then, it's not it's not a huge, so it. I don't know. What it is, that's the facts about it.
It has no impact on money going to the school board at all, and even to the point where it was underscored by one of the mayoral candidates that you hire your attorney. She was hired to be the school board attorney. She was hired to be, and attorneys work to litigate.
Right.
And Joe could tell you everything that's been done in Gadsden and Etowah County had to be litigated, especially for minorities to get a fair shake, everything. And so litigation is a part of life.
All right. Well, I think that's a good kind of segue into let's let's get rolling into some background, just a little bit. I know we'll probably have more folks that are more familiar with Fred, but Joe, can you can you give me just a little bit of your background? What got you here? I know you've been criticized of being, I guess, even more of an outsider than I am. But from what I gather, you're a lot more of an insider than I am because you've been around here for many more years than I have. So what's kind of gotten you? Why are you involved the way you are in Gadsden? Why are you meddling in our affairs around here?
Well, the citizen, that's years ago, I was born and reared here. I went to high school here. I even attended a junior college for a while. And I was a basketball coach, baseball, football. I did a number of things. But some years back, I got involved with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, in which I was elected president. And not too long after I was elected president, we had a killing of a black man by the Gadsden Police Department. So that's how things really got started. And from that, we didn't have, of course, any black firefighters, no black police officers, no black in any position, even in the school system itself, because all the black was teachers, no principals, anything. So as Fred said, we taught, we demonstrated, we marched, but at the end, we had to get an attorney. We had to file a suit against the city. So everything that we have now dealing with the fire, the police, schools, it came through lawsuits. And I had some very good whites, and we had some whites that supported us. And one particular individual I would like to mention is Virginia Brock from the Gadsden Times. We didn't have WMGJ radio at that time. And of course, none of the other radio stations would allow me to come on. So Virginia Brock kept our thing in the newspaper just about every day. It was something on front page, Joseph Cole, SCLC, our marches and everything. So I left. I taught school in Birmingham, taught at Ramsey. I taught in Atlanta, and I also worked for Dr. Richard Ayrton, the first black mayor of Birmingham. So I left, and my family was still here, and I was gone for a while. And about 2012, 2010, I got a call. There was trouble with, only had about a few firefighters, and the people wanted to know what's going on. They're not hiring, and because they're black. That was the word I was got. They're not hiring blacks. So I came and I investigated, and I found out that really was not the case because we didn't have many blacks applying. Therefore, if you do not apply, you cannot become a firefighter. So what we did, we started getting the ball rolling. Fred, Zackery, and myself started tutoring all the young men who wanted to be firefighters and police officers. Mr. Floyd Donald took part in that too. So we began to get people involved to want to start. Then I started getting calls. There was issues with the city. Different things was going on. And I got caught up in it. So I started coming to the council, laying out these points of view. And one thing I do want to say, I did bring it to the council, and I hope this council consider it. In other cities, in Birmingham, in other cities, they have neighborhood association. You have these council members. They may have a meeting each month. Luckily, if they have 10 people there, they don't even have 1% of the people in their district. So by having neighborhood association, each neighborhood has a president and a secretary. So if anything happened within the neighborhood, it would go to that president. And that way they could pass the word on to their council person. And so instead of trying to be everywhere, you got people you can contact in your city. The second thing they need to do is when people come into the council meeting, have a paper where they can sign in to speak. And they don't do that. They got this thing where the president has to approve, and if she doesn't want to like what you're going to talk about, she can avoid you from coming. So everything is just so closed up here. It's tight fist, and you got these department heads. They think they run everything. So, and I just been fighting that for the past few years. And some of the black leaders didn't like it, some of the white, but I don't go about that. I try to do the right thing.
Right.
And if it affect black folks, that's fine. If it affect white folks, that's fine. I want it to affect them in a way that they will attempt to do something about it. So that's part of my little history.
Well,
not much, but that's it.
I know to piggyback on what you're saying, because obviously, the racial aspect of things, particularly just in our nation right now, is just a gasoline fire,
Absolutely,
and a very hard conversation to have, with everybody. And kind of as I got into this, and you hear this discussion about representation, equal representation inside the city government, inside different positions. I've kind of looked at it, and as I look at all the people that make up that are appointed on boards and all that kind of stuff, I dumb it down even further. There's just basic lack of representation across the board. Regardless of whether you want to look at it from color, from qualifications. It's just so. Hopefully we can kind of peel that onion back to at least get to that point where everybody goes, yeah, we got to have, of course, the airport authority is a gleaming one that we've talked a lot about. Now we got one aviator, just from a aviation aspect of representation on a board, what sense does that make? That doesn't seem, and obviously we've beat that dead horse over and over again, but it's true. It's been interesting to see what has transpired the last couple of years that have brought folks together, at least from what I've seen, in a way that is a little unusual. So somebody asked the question of why you're involved. I hope that gives some people some context. So you're not really from Atlanta. And I'm sure some people would go, oh, it's from some, big black caucus that's trying to come and meddle in. No, you're from here. You've been involved, and you're just coming back to help your family and your neighbors and stay involved. So, and I can definitely see this kind of stuff start sucking you right back in, no matter how much you try to get away.
I would like to say one thing, if you allow me. I attended the Board of Education meeting on last week, and I spoke to the board about, I took some kids to Montgomery, and before then I had met with the kids, and I have told people I'm going to be pulling back. I want to place my emphasis on the kids, because when I met with the kids at the middle school and the high school, and I asked two questions. I asked how many of them had fired a handgun, and the majority of their hands went up. And I'm talking about 11, 12, 13-year-olds. I asked them, they hold a gun, they fired the gun, and their parents was aware of them doing this. So that really bothered me, because I don't feel like no 11, 12, or 13-year-olds should be handling guns at all. And this past week in Atlanta, we had several school closings because kids were bringing guns to school now. And I don't know if because they see these shootings and it's fearful, and they should not have access. So, I want to get involved with these kids, because this is where our future is. Yeah. And if we just allow these things to go on and don't address it, we're going to have some major issues.
And that, and obviously the gun issue is another one of those. It's a can of gas to light on. It's an interesting conversation in our community. As a more rural area where you've got a lot of people that hunt. Correct. And I don't, obviously, what's the demographic of the kids that you're talking about? Are they from inner city versus, because I do know, quite frankly, I got family members that their son was out hunting when he was 7 or 8, and more common. It had nothing to do. And of course, I remember going to Auburn and walking through when I was there, and guys would schedule their classes so that they could hit the deer stand in the morning and get back out there at night. And you walk through campus, and there's guns hanging in the racks. But obviously the world is definitely different, and I think you're referring to it from a different aspect of not just a bunch of folks that have been out hunting and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, and that sound like a pretty good trip. educational, great opportunity.
An excellent trip. The kids and some of the teachers, we had some white instructors to go, and they told me they were very impressed because it was a number of things they did not know. And on that note, the president of the council had told me that the Board of Education had cut back on these types of trips.
Right.
But the president, the chairman of the board told Mr. Cole that is untrue. So anytime you want to come here and meet with the kids, you can. Anytime you want to take them, you can. Okay. And another board member said, not only that, Mr. Cole, if you need money, we will help give you money to take the kids on the trip. So I'm going to take them up on that. But there are some things I want to do. He joined in with me because he took the Boys and Girls Club. They went on a trip. We want the kids to have some educational things, some opportunities outside that they can do other than, on the little cell phones and the games. Right, we want them to get some educational things behind them, and I want to help, to try to make that happen.
Well, so I guess that leads us over to you, Fred, with, again, folks probably know a little bit more about your background. So what I'll ask it this way. What has gotten you into running for the school board, and your background and what you've been in, how is that all, how have you gotten to here?
Well, I'll be perfectly honest, as I always am. I had no intentions of running for school board. But when I looked at the achievements of the school board, or even the direction of the school board as it represents District 3, there's no school, there's no reading room, there's no library, there is no resource for our children, and outside the walls of the school, there's nothing for our kids, and there's no school. So I waited until 4 o'clock. The last day to qualify to see if anybody else would qualify and run. So I decided to put my hat in because I do understand the need for literacy in a community for it to grow and progress. And the lack of literacy. We held a Stop the Violence rally Juneteenth. We had about 120 kids there, and some simple questions were asked. And the children, lady told me to stop saying kids, but the children were unable to answer very basic questions. And so it started me thinking, if you're not infused in the community, I don't care what board you sit on, and that's what most of these folks do, is sit on these boards. They just sit them down. And lacking in a community such as mine. I'm in District 3, so I know what goes on in District 3. The kids are left way, way behind. So my whole exposure to travel and outside classroom education was very beneficial to me. Mm-hmm. And I know that it works. And so we got to expose these young people to outside classroom learning. If they can smell it, if they can touch it, if they can envision it, it creates a different concept for learning. And the expectations are so low for our kids. You don't expect nothing, they don't do nothing. So we have to have a community involvement for educating not just Black kids, but educating all kids, and bringing them to the table so that they can enhance the quality of life of people that coming behind them. And I don't see that happening right now. And so the board, being on the board is not going to do anything different for me at this time in my life, except allow me to advocate for those kids. Now, I am the impetus behind Ignite, which is a reading program that was started August 11th. The ribbon was cut last year to have our children reading by 3. That's in full swing for its development. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I want to go. I want children to read by 3. The Gadsden Times asked me what was my major goal and objective. And my major goal is to have a literate community where our children are reading earlier, perhaps by 3 overall in our community, and to do that in the next couple of years.
Mm. Well, so let's expand a little bit more then on what needs to happen, because I think you guys have got a little bit more unique perspective than I guess some of us younger folks in terms of you've seen the school system change, and from very dramatic ways to where we are today. But what's the next thing that we need to do? I don't want to just say Gadsden, but I mean in our county, obviously there's a narrative being driven that Gadsden needs to stay by itself and not worry about all the rest. And I think all three of us would agree that's kind of a silly conversation. We don't necessarily need to get into combining school systems and scare everybody that's what we're talking about. But what do we need to do fundamentally with getting kids ready, more the future, and in our community? What are some things that we need to be doing?
Exposure. That's where I'm coming from. The taking the kids to the Legacy Museum. We are planning a trip to Cathedral Caverns to. That's just a different aspect of learning, and to take these trips on a regular basis for that kind of learning. But the community has to be engaged. You have to get parents involved in this, not coming to PTO or PTSO meetings, but engaged in the education of their children. The reading schools for 21, 22 are out for third graders, and there are only 2 schools. I think it's 2, maybe 3 schools that read at level. That's not a good thing. And so you can't do any of the other things that folks talk heartily about doing and in the future tense without having a reading group of people. You got to read. You can't do nothing unless you know how to read.
And I guess it is a scary truth that we've got a lot of folks in our community and really throughout the country that reading is a basic issue that they have trouble with. And I know when we talk about economic development, we talk about bringing in high paying jobs and all of that kind of stuff. It can be, at least for me, can be fairly easy to forget about. Well, we've still got some way more fundamental problems that we need to figure out how to solve. There's a question about mentorship and your thoughts. How important is mentorship in, have you seen any good mentorship programs? Do we have any of that kind of stuff going on, or how do we implement some of that when you talk about community involvement?
We do. I think what Mr. Cole does is mentorship, and what I do is mentorship. But there are some programs. John Reed has a program, and there are some other programs where mentors, but not enough. We got to get to the point where we can find and match up children in the community with people who can carry them forth, who can hold them accountable, who they can look up to and look at as a resolute example of somebody who is trying to benefit the community, benefit the child, and grow us all together.
Mr. Cole, any good mentorships?
And to add to that, see, everybody want to place emphasis on the teachers. The teachers cannot do it by themselves, and teachers cannot be parents. We need parents to be parents and teachers to be teachers, but the parents need to get involved. When I was teaching, I was one of the few teachers at my school would go out into the community, because it's a little dangerous now, and I can understand why people won't want to do that. But I went to the kids' home. I met with the parents. We want the parents to get involved in this because they are part of this too. And I tell you, because they drop their kids off at school from 8 to 3 or whatever the time is, they are that entire time they're with the teachers, but the teachers are not parents. Parents have to get involved. I know they work, but they have to get involved as well. When those kids come home, make sure that they're doing their homework. Make sure if they don't read for 5 or 10 minutes, just get in the habit of doing that, right. And that child will catch on to it. It doesn't have to be a book or page, just a few pages, and the more they do it, the more they will enjoy doing it. But this is something that we're going to have to push. We have organizations, we have different groups. They need to get involved because this is very important. And if we lose these kids, we have lost everything.
Well, I guess the next step out of that is a huge piece of education, and this gets back up to good paying jobs. And so we're down here starting with getting the kids prepared. But certainly in Etowah County, the kid that's capable, the kid that is able to make it through one way or the other, whether it's through good parenting or just sheer will, or a lucky mentor that sees them through and they get the education they need, or they're a sports star or whatever that gets them. What opportunity is there to keep them in Etowah County? And obviously that's kind of a loaded question, because I think we've talked a lot over the past couple of years about how little opportunity there is. But how do we keep them here? How do we keep them to re-engage? How do we? What do we need to do? I mean, like what's the future? What's the next 5 or 10 years as we've gone through all this render and plant stuff? Obviously, a lot of conversation going on. What are your thoughts on that? Because obviously we want to get them prepared, but we also want to try and figure out how to not let them run away and go seek other opportunities.
That's an excellent question, and that's where August the 23rd come into play. The next leaders that we have, this mayor and the council, this is a very special time in Gadsden, Alabama, and we need the leadership that's going to take us to the next level. We've been stagnated for quite a while. Someone has to get in there. Some tough decisions are going to have to be made, and it has to come from the leadership. And if we have poor leadership or no leadership, we're not going to go anyway, and we'll still be where we are today. So there's council and this mayor, and we don't need a council that's going to kowtow whatever the mayor wants. They have to challenge the mayor. The mayor has to challenge the council. See, we have an issue, especially with the funding. They talk about the 2% sales tax, the occupational tax rather, and we also have this deal with the employees who've been there a number of years. They get this longevity pay. We do not pay our firefighters and police officers, and there's always excuses for that. You have the insurance. They need to renegotiate with the insurance company about this insurance and retirement. See, there are things that can be done, but we got to have people bold enough to get in there to make these decisions instead of just, passing the buck on. You got people at City Hall now in office making the decisions, and they really don't know what they're doing because the city is just running stagnated. And, and I stand by what I said. Mm-hmm. But we're going to need the proper leadership to get us to another level. And if we don't, you all will be having this conversation, because I'm not going to be a part of it.
The total disposition of Gadsden needs to be changed. I call it a village, but we need to take on a village mentality. It still lies within the black-white thing. It's the most segregated little place you can go to. You can go to Fort Payne, who recently had a black police chief. Gadsden has never had, and I'm not saying you have to have black folk, but you don't have an opportunity in Gadsden if you are the mayor's managerial staff here is I say 26 and old. People have heard me say that. 26 white guys, no women for the most part, except for one, and nobody else. So why would a young African American think about coming back here if they had some interest in public administration? It's not there for them. We are still too black and too white. We are still too white and less black. We are still too male and less female. We don't optimize the opportunities for using creative tension and the most intellect we can to grow this place. And that's what's wrong with it. The good old Bubba network has just bottomed out, and it's okay for the people, I guess, who getting what they want out of it. But they're bleeding the city dry, not just of funds, but of intellect and for experience and for ability for people to be creative. Is not happening. We have to build a bench. We have to build a bench and show these folks, train them, teach them, and say, you will be able to go there and not go to Atlanta and Chattanooga, Nashville and Birmingham, all of these places, because we have some opportunity here for you. You can go to all of those places because they're within an hour's drive away. But this is where you need to be exploring possibilities and growing this village.
Well, and I think that goes back to the basics of real representation. I mean, how many younger folks? I mean, just looking at the city council, how many younger business owners are really represented on there? I'm getting honestly, I find it funny when people brag about having been involved in running the city for 20 plus years, because I don't know that that's something I'd really brag about, to be frank. And I saw Danny Starnes asked a question about why there seems to be so much tension with you and Miss Tolles. And Danny, I think we probably have a little glimpse of why some of that occurs when you get up there. But it's fun to watch you hold your own. And we've all seen how they've behaved. And I know they've been behaving that way with you a lot longer than we've been paying attention.
That's true.
So I'm going to jump into a couple of questions before we move on. But I do want y'all thinking, because we keep getting accused of all we do is talk about negative stuff and what's wrong. So I'm gonna let you have a few minutes to think about one positive thing that's going on in Gadsden. We'll get to that here in just a second. Robert Hunter has got a question in here, and I know he seems very passionate about youth mentorship and youth program. How do you deal with homes where the parent works 2 jobs to provide for the kids? So most of the time they don't get to see their kid until maybe like Sunday afternoon. Thoughts on how, I mean, certainly there's just the realities of life, even for what I would consider good parents, that the reason they're good parents, they're doing the best they can to provide, the home, and that requires working a lot. So what are your thoughts there? Opportunities for dealing with that and helping those parents?
Some years ago, we had centers here where kids could go in the afternoon. I worked at the Valley Street Field House, and there was a number of centers around the school, after school. And even in the building, we had a library. We had a place where the kids could study and do their work, and also they could play. So there was something, at this point of time, there isn't anything to do because we don't have places for the kids to go. And if their parents are working, the kids are at home, or if they're not at home, they're out in the streets, because a number of things can go on at that time. But we do need some activities. And one of the ways he talked about these reading rooms, if we had places for these kids to go, you have your Boys and Girls Club. There are different organizations, different things that can be done, but we have to get it where these kids can go, and we have to put out the word, and people have to get more involved.
Right.
If we're in this situation, we can look and talk and criticize, but my question is, what are you doing?
Right.
So if you're not doing anything, so don't beat up on anybody. Come on and let's join in and see what we can do to help this situation.
And I don't think you're pointing that finger at Robert Hunter.
No.
He seems like he's trying to do as much as he
it's
can.
Not directed at him at all.
He's a fine young man.
Yeah, he works. He does. No, it's not directed.
You mentioned the Boys and Girls Club, and finding supports in our families, in our community. Sometimes the absence of family support and community support, it becomes necessary to build upon. We got to find some aunties and uncles in the community that will help raise children. And then I'm going to say something that may sound crazy, but we have to also think about the responsibility of raising a child or children and what our earning ability is when we pleasure to that effect of producing a child. It's not a simple thing, but we can do it.
Right.
We can absolutely do it. Put into communities, places, supervised places where children can go, and it may not can close at 5 or 6 o'clock. It may have to stay them to 8 or 9.
Correct.
But we have to have and more than basketball,
right.
Late night basketball. That's a beautiful thing. But we need some supervised, challenging places for children to go, like the Boys and Girls, and we have to support those things. We
Right.
just can't not support them and expect them to exist. So parents have to be diligent about finding support systems. You know, when I grew up, my grandmother on my father's side and my mother's side was the support system. And the lady next door, we call her Miss Dorothy Landry. That was a support system. The folks
Right.
across the street, the
Yes,
Sims,
yes,
that
Yep.
was a
yes.
support system. So you got to get to know your neighbors and stop hovering
Right.
into your residence and not
Right.
reaching out to bring people.
Well, and one thing that comes to my mind that's not necessarily a quick solution, but as we talk about developing plans and growing the economy of Gadsden, the other way to solve some of that is to offer better paying jobs. So you're not stuck in a situation where you've got to work so many hours because you're not making that much, and there just isn't that much opportunity in the city, and that can be a very tough spot. And obviously providing the education or whatever is required to get those parents into those kind of places. But hopefully we can get to a place where we've attracted business in that's got better paying jobs. It means you're not having to work a bunch of overtime just to be able to keep the lights on,
and stop charging people to work. The occupational tax is charging you 2% to work. You're underpaid in the first place, and then you have to give up 2% of your earnings to work. That has to change.
And I've always wondered why Gadsden didn't try, and maybe they have tried. Why we don't have an Amazon warehouse here in Gadsden? Have they tried? And we have, and the leaders, we have a representative that represent Gadsden in Congress, Congressman Etowah, who has seniority. Have they talked to him to help get funded? We have 2 senators. It doesn't make any difference what party they are. This is their area, and they will work.
Mm-hmm.
But we just clinch. We're going to stay over here and not do anything, and the people are suffering. And then people want to know what's going on. We need leaders going to do everything they can to get this city built up. We can get some good jobs. And as the young man said, people wouldn't have to be working 2 jobs, a decent paying job. And then someone told me, it may have been Mr. Zackery, that it's going off to another subject, but if you're not making that much money, you miss paying your garbage bill, they'll come and pull your trash can, I understand, and then you could go to court. We don't need to punish people. They're not making money as it is. We need to open the door and try to help people, but it just seems to be, it's all about me. We got to work together, and that's black, white, brown, whatever. If this city is going to be anything we want to be, otherwise it's going to continue to go down, and we don't want that. And we're not here expressing. That's not what we want. We want people to come together and do what they can do, and everybody can play a part, and everybody has a part to play.
Well, I think we've talked a lot about the potential that's around here, and there's a ton. You talk about an Amazon Center. Obviously, I think immediately about the airport,
Yes,
the access to the interstate and all that kind of stuff. There's some potentially low hanging fruit in some of that. Obviously, they got the mega site. That hopefully good things will come out of that in time. I know sometimes those things take a while. I don't know all the details, so I'm not going to throw a bunch of arrows and throw a bunch of stones at how that's all gone down. Other than I'm glad they didn't end up putting a rendering plant out there either. But the working together, having the conversation, I think hopefully at least a good chunk of the community has engaged with this rendering plant and forced a lot of us to have some conversations, some of them very tough and awkward. I thought it was great to have Fred and Carolyn Parker sitting in with whatever you want to categorize Advanced Etowah as. It was not a group of folks that came together with the intention to take over anything. We were just trying to solve a problem, and we had a few folks that jumped in and had a lot of insight and offered a lot of help. So hopefully we can move on from this with maintaining the level of interest in the conversations and heading in a good direction. Joe Taylor says that'll preach, Joseph. Um, so
But
yes,
if we all work together, there isn't anything that we cannot do. And why is it so hard? You and I had a long conversation. We hadn't met. And we had a meeting of the mind because we agreed on more things that we disagreed on. So that's what people need to do. It's not about the big eyes and the little U's. We all have to do this together, and we can do it. But someone has to make that step. Someone has to reach out.
Well, that is definitely the something that has sunk in greatly with me in this community through all of this, is sitting down again, talking with a lot of people that I never would have talked to, a couple of years ago when we talk about back to the flooding issues in East Gadsden, and I know Coosa Riverkeeper, they had the meeting over at the church, and we sat down, and a lot of that. It's not that, I'm the rich white guy that doesn't care. I've got soccer practice, I got band I'm doing, like I'm trying to raise my kids, I'm trying to work my tail off. I'm living my life over here, and then I've admitted I'm not paying enough attention, but all it takes is 3.5 minutes of educating me on what's going on. I'm sitting there going, that's unsat. People shouldn't be having sewage backing up into their, they shouldn't be losing Christmas presents. Like, yeah, we need to fix that. And I think there's, hopefully we've opened up some dialogue where there's a lot more general knowledge in the community of issues. And I know, again, a lot of folks will say, well, I've been screaming about that for years. You have, and there's nothing I guess I can say, I'm sorry. I'm here now. Let's figure out how to fix it. So, did have a question. Is Mr. Cole familiar with the Megan Kelly Dream Center across from Floyd Elementary?
No, I'm not.
All right. Well, maybe drop a link in there in the comments if they've got a web presence or whatever, and we can go take a look and learn about that later. Going back through. I don't know. We can save that one for a little bit later. Asking about District 1 candidates. We'll save that for just a minute. So all right. So let's not be negative. Even though I really don't think any of the stuff we've been talking about is negative. Quite honestly, it's quite positive. And it's positive that we're sitting here talking about it.
If it's an issue, we need to bring it out.
Right.
So no need to hold it.
So what would you say? One good thing happening. What's one good thing going for Gadsden right now? And we'll restrict it to Gadsden before Mayor Taylor gets mad at me because I don't talk all about good things going in Rainbow City. So he'll kick me out if I don't talk good about Rainbow City. But let's stick with Gadsden. What's one good thing? Who wants to go first?
I'll let Mr. Zackery go.
Well, there are a lot of good things, but the possibility of a new council and a new mayor. We know it'll be a new mayor, but God, let's hope that it's the right new mayor. Not a rerun. It's important that. And I know the question you asked, but I want to speak on this while it's on my mind. The city has been run, this is not negative, through punitive taxation and fees for a number of years. We got a 10% sales tax when you can run right over to Rome, Georgia, and get your stuff for 6%, especially if you're buying big items. And that was a collusionary move. Got together with all the folks, they better raise the tax, I think, except Rainbow City to 10%. Then we have garbage. Joe mentioned the garbage situation. Pull your garbage can, you get it back, you have to pay a $70 deposit plus a $25 trip fee. Now, if they took my can, I couldn't pay the bill, but you're going to charge me $70 and a $25 trip fee. Then, if I don't pay that, you take me to court, to municipal court. Fine me. If I don't pay that, I'm locked up. It's reminiscent of debtor's prison. And so it's an economic base for city revenues that comes on the back of poverty. And that has to leave us. we just can't sustain that kind of. Gadsden is anti-business, and so we see stuff go different places because the folks are more pro-business. If we can just get on board with a plan. See, one of the good things I hear, some of these people say they're going to have a plan. You know, people promise a lot of things during elections, but a plan has not been available here since 1977. No plan. So what do we do? I love your question, but you know we gotta we gotta clean up the Coosa. It's one of the it's the ninth worst river in America for pollution and devastation to aquatic life. We have got to clean up this stuff, and we can go around old Gadsden, City of Champions, and Great Gadsden, and all of that. That's all good. But we have to come together, put our backs together, and make sure that we create opportunities to move forward. 50 years of losing population is too long.
All right.
I want to compliment the police department and the fire department. People say I talk about them all the time. One have brought suit against the fire department and the police department, but they were totally different during that time. Because the policeman then was
what was the time frame with that?
We're talking about
the 40s.
I wasn't back there then. I wasn't back there then. I'm sure it was rough there. But I'm talking about the 60s, 70s, and 80s. This police force in Gadsden was something else and really rough on blacks, beating, doing a number of things. But we have a police force now that they're at the top with me, and so is that fire department. We've had people running both. When I was working with them to try to get blacks, if things need to be done, both chiefs, they didn't hesitate. Whatever we needed, they was right there. And even the officers now, they are more respectful. You know, they see an individual as an individual, not white, black, and that makes a difference. And that's why when you have people to come out, the police don't have to worry, the citizens don't have to worry, because you can talk to them, the firefighters. So I am very appreciative of that. Chief Carroll, when he was in, Mr. Taylor was there before he became the mayor down in Rainbow City. These people worked, and they really showed me something, because I didn't know what the reaction was going to be, but they was very receptive to me. Anytime I called, they didn't treat me like the council did. They welcomed me. And if we had disagreements, they weren't major disagreements. We talked about it and we worked it out. So that's a good thing, but people have to communicate. And I want to say this too. When I went to Gadsden Middle School to meet with those students, the principal told me about 30% of the kids there are whites, and most of them are from the Rainbow Drive area. Those kids, after I spoke to them and I got ready to leave, the white kids and all just came around. They wanted to hug and talk and go on. See, we have good people here in this city. And so we need to show some leadership. We need to show these kids and all this bickering. We're going to have disagreement, but we should be able to disagree, work it out, and go on. But people hold grudges. People get mad, and it's not about that. And we would not be successful with that. That's why when he said, I hope we do get the right mayor. And we got people running, number of people running for the council. We got some young people running who I'm even supporting, because I want to see younger people there. You got people that have been there 30, 40 years. They need to retire, go wherever they go. And that's the only way we're going to move forward. So those are the good things that I know that we can do and people are doing. So if we do that, if we decide we want to work together, we can work together. But I can't hold back because, you know, I don't like you and this. It's not going to work that way. We really got to join hands, black, white, brown, and whatever, and work together. We said that, but if we're going to succeed, that's what it's going to take.
Well, you know, and I think that's one of the reasons I've gotten as involved with this stuff. We got a lot of national problems. I got no idea how to fix all that stuff. I'm seeing it in conversations as we talk about, you know, a mayor and city council members, and we're pulling down party ideology and all this kind of stuff and pulling it in. And I think, I mean, when you really get down and you talk to each other and go, look, we got potholes we got to fix. We got runoff drainage issues. Like, if we're arguing about whether we should or shouldn't teach our kids to read by the time they're 3, We got bigger problems than, I mean, like that's just not, I mean, our problem. And even right now, from what I see, the issues we have in our community they're so basic. Like, how do we pass a budget? What's the actual process that we go through with a budget, and how a budget is developed in the city of Gadsden is a broken process. That's something that was very, very well highlighted through this rendering plant. And it, numerous items that I go, look, I don't really understand. Like, before we even start disagreeing on, political policy, we've got some basics of how we do business. And if people are going to argue that we need to pay our firefighters and our, police more, well, why are we having retention issues? You don't have to be a staunch Republican or a staunch Democrat to figure out, well, you're not paying them anything. That's the problem you're having. And then the way they're treated, when you've got people with the attitude of, we'll just get a second job. That's crazy. Yeah. So, all right. So my one, I some good stuff. And I'm looking forward to hopefully talking with them a little bit later this week. But our business owners, guys like Jason Wilson, Kerry Matchin from Gadrock, I sat down and had a conversation early on with Beth Ann Mashburn and what she's done with the alley. We've got a lot of people that are they're overcoming some of the issues with the business environment, and come hell or high water, they're trying to make something happen, and add to our community, and which they're not the only ones. There's other people, and like you said, we've got good people in this community. And I think we've got some politicians that are very skilled at painting a narrative that we all can't get along, and that we're, I think
we're thankful for our business people.
Yeah, and I think when you boil it down and you really start talking to people, we really do have a lot of good people in Etowah County, that have some decency of thought. And are willing to sit down and have a conversation. And then, throughout the county, we've got some other cool things that, like Evoke Aviation out at the airport, that it's just cool. Technically that's in the city of Gadsden, so it's not just a county thing. But, so we do, I am, when we start all this, I said, I'm sick of everybody sitting around saying how bad Gadsden is. Now, of course, I guess I'm being accused of sitting around saying how bad Gadsden is, but I'm saying that with
Were you lying?
Well, no.
Were you telling the truth?
Well, no, I'm telling the truth about the issues, and coming to it with, here's the solutions. Here we're identifying how to solve these problems. Right, so, all right. Well, not that anybody really cared what I thought. So, but I've got the clicker, so I'm in control. All right, let me just real quick jump through here, and then we'll turn it over for the miscellaneous section, if you will. All right, I think we're good. So let's finish up with your thoughts on the race. If there is anybody that you guys want to endorse here or anything like that, or tell people to go check out and learn more. For those, if you've missed it, we've got the candidate profile. If you go to Etowah, advancedetowah.com, we've got profiles on everybody, which I think I need to get more information actually for you on there. But we've got links to people that have got websites, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully it's easy for people to find. But what are your thoughts on some of the key races around here?
Well, I guess the key race for me is the Board of Education, because without a good Board of Education, all the others are inconsequential. Of course, mayor is very important. And one of the things I want to say is that we have to stop leaning into the arc of believing anything that someone says loudly to us. When you start talking about PAC money and dirty money, look at the person who's making the conversation and see how much PAC money they have taken. Was it dirty then? Let's understand the process,
right,
and come on board with looking at the issues and how much this person been in the state legislature for 18, 20 years. What you've been on the farm, so how much ham did you bring home? If you've been somewhere else for 20, 25 years, driving a truck or whatever, how much pork did you bring back to Gadsden? It's incredibly important. One of my, I'm not fully endorsing anybody, but I think it's time for Gadsden to have a female leader. Let's try it. Because not try it because it's just a woman, but try it because common sense comes when you hear the folks talking and the clucking and clucking about, oh Lord, and one person has been running since 1974. So, it's time for them to either win or go fishing. And so I don't know. And the candidates in the council races, I do feel like Joe feels we need some younger people, and I'm sitting here old as tar, but nobody else would go. We're running.
Right.
So I'm running, and we just have to look at this. Should be beauty contest. Look at what a person can do to enhance the quality of life for our community.
Well, and I do want to emphasize when you say don't just take everybody at their word. That includes me. That includes anything that we've put out there, and we have tried very hard to almost put too much information out that it's overwhelming for people. But we haven't said anything or put anything out that here's the evidence. We've held back from just blanket accusations,
Right.
but you're absolutely right. And we've encouraged, go do the research. I know most of the candidates are all willing to sit down and talk with you. And if that's what you need to do, then reach out. And hopefully you can find them. So, thoughts on what you're seeing, even though you're an evil outsider from Atlanta?
I have been focusing on young people, and there are 2 young people, one in District 2 for the council, one in District 3 that I've been following, and I do support. And I want people, we need to start looking at our young folks. The young man that I am endorsing and supporting in District 2 is Ashton Gray. He's a young man, he's intelligent, and he wants to do things in the way that it's supposed to be done. And in District 3, it's Larry Avery. He works over on Tuscaloosa. He's all about the first Saturday. These young men works, and we need younger people, and the other people need to get out the way. We need to step back and give them a chance. And they say, well, next time. Why should it be a next time? Now is the time. So we need to give them a chance. So I want people to look hard at Ashton Gray in Council District 2 and Larry Avery in Council District 3. I won't bother Warren and the others. I'll let people make their minds up on those. But I am endorsing those 2 young people, and I want you to vote and get behind them. And everybody next Tuesday, this is a very important election. It's very, very important. Especially, all of them is important, but that mayor's position, you need to look at these people. You need to hear what they're saying. You need to follow them. What have they done? And what are they bringing to the table now? We really need somebody. It's going to be new, but we need somebody who's going to tackle the job. And I heard somebody ask, well, what do you expect to do after your 100 days? They won't have anything done in 100 days. It's too much to be done, but at least things can be set in motion. So I thank you for inviting me on, and maybe you invite me again if the people won't run off. But I do appreciate it.
Hey, it's good conversation, and I respect listening to guys like y'all that have been involved in the fight, and I hope I do more learning than I do talking, I think there's a good representation of if we step out in particularly some national level politics and stuff like that, we'll probably disagree fairly quickly, but we got to start here.
But as long as you don't lie, we'll get along.
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. But that's the beauty.
Some people on the national level lie, but you straight up.
We got to figure out how to have the conversation, and that's what we've got to. I mean, so that's where I'm at. We've got to start here. And it's really not that difficult.
This is a nonpartisan municipal
Absolutely,
election.
absolutely.
So doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. It's not a D or R in this process, and we know we're in a red city,
Right.
so but it's still nonpartisan, and if we can look at it from that perspective,
Correct.
I know one candidate is I'm the only Republican running. And I don't know how they know that. I probably voted as many times Republican as I have Democrat over the years. So that's not a thing with me. I'm not a Trumper. Never will be. But because I love me. And so it's just important to move that needle. All that's crazy anyway. Jesus is not going to ask you whether you're a Republican.
Like I said, I don't know how to fix all those issues. Well, I think a good place to at least try starting is right here talking about how do we pointing out that we need to start with the mayor in a city, and the mayor is a person that's going to be the CEO. I mean, particularly with our government structure, that they need to be able to manage and run a company, which is the city, and that seems like something that's been lacking, and certainly through this whole conversation, you've reiterated that over and over in multiple different ways.
Do away with paternal government. We don't need a parent government. We need a functional, to bring business to.
And I hope that resonates with a lot of people from a lot of different aspects, because there's a lot baked into that. So, gentlemen, thank y'all so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you. So 12:40 a.m. Are you on every day at noon?
Monday through Friday. Introspection. Got a bunch of the candidates on the rest of the week and Monday or so next week. So, it's interesting. And it's also interesting to get to talk to these folks on an individual basis when they come in for the show, because I get a different perspective from them than I had when I hadn't met them.
We got one person that says, I know Mr. Cole is supporting tolls. LOL.
Big support.
Big. It's huge. I had to ask him to take his T-shirt off when he walked in here. So, all right. Well, on that note, guys, thank y'all for listening. Please, please, please go do your due diligence if you're a Gadsden voter, and if you're not a Gadsden voter, don't buy into this stupidity of you shouldn't voice your opinion and try to influence the politics in the city of Gadsden, because we all eat here. Most of us work or live or drive through or do something. We're too small a community to have that attitude. And, you may be the one at your office in Gadsden that's actually paying attention, because everybody else is all worried about Alabama football and how they're going to do this season. So be the one when they ask, what do I need to know? Make sure you're informed and you can tell them. Because I know there's some of you that's who you are in your workspace, and that is as important as anything else that's going on. So thank y'all. Y'all have a great day. We've got some more lives coming up this week. We'll be getting more information out about that. Should be a fun conversation tomorrow talking about the airport. I've got a retired FedEx pilot coming in, and Mr. John Floyd, who has joined us or has never joined us, but everybody's read his articles in the Gadsden Times. And then Ken Robertson, who's the only aviator and an attorney on the airport authority. We're going to come in here and talk about the airport and some of the potential and what's going on out there. So I think it's going to be a great conversation. We'll try not to talk too boring about airplanes. So, but I think Mr. Floyd will keep us on track. But guys, y'all have a great